Classic Restos, proudly brought to you by Shannons. Sign up to become a member of the Shannons Club. Kenworth Trucks Australia and Pace Farm Eggs.
G'day and welcome to the show. An opportunity to get this car out and present from inside the Fletch mobile studio. The Chrysler 1981, a CM Regal, a 364-speed car, and it's another beloved car in the stable. I love driving this car. I don't get that much of an opportunity, but I really enjoy it every time I do. Reminiscing here, thinking of episode flashbacks and museums I want to share with you. I'd like to think for the next 26 minutes or so that you can come along for the ride with me and enjoy what you are about to see. I'm Fletch, and this is Classic Restos on the road. Well, I went out to get some milk. I always get sidetracked when I go and get milk. Just recently on Classic Restos, though, we have featured the Transport Hall of Fame Museum in Alice Springs. And what a fantastic museum that is. Today's episode is putting the spotlight focus and emphasis on our museums here in Australia. We don't have that many, and I think the ones that are there we have to support as much as we possibly can. Another recent episode was featured at the National Holden Motor Museum at Coffs Harbour. Now, what a breath of fresh air this place was. The naming rights transferred over from Echuca, and we didn't lose Echuca. The way I see it, we had it transferred. And I think that that's wonderful to be able to keep the tradition of that Holden Museum. I've managed to film at the National Motor Museum at Birdwood a few times over the years. There was one year where Efijy was featured and I had the opportunity to call Richard Ferlazzo. Now, Richard Ferlazzo was head of the design studio for General Motors Holden. And not only that, Richard is a great friend. He's a great friend to lots of people. He's a great guy. Here's a little of myself and Richard that day at the National Motor Museum at Birdwood in South Australia. One of the most amazing cars created back in 2005 would have to go down as Efijy, and I'm lucky enough now on the phone to have Richard Ferlazzo. He's the guy behind this that styled the car and had a lot to do with it. Good morning, Richard. How are you?
Good morning, Fletch. Great to talk to you again.
Thank you very much. We're standing beside your car.
Oh, we'll give it a polish while you're there, will you, please?
Richard, this is just an incredible design. I don't think there's one enthusiast around the world, especially in this country, that could deny such an incredible car. Where did it go back with you? Where did you get the idea from? Where did it all start?
Oh, gosh, it goes back a long way, Fletch. I started at Holden in 1988, and it wasn't much long after I was just looking through some magazines with all my colleagues there, and I don't mind saying that some of the inspiration came from Larry Erickson's Cagzilla. It was a concept car at the time. I remember doing some sketches and thinking, we could do a fabulous custom car of an FJ one day, using the resources of a talent like we have at the design centre. But of course, it just seemed like a pipe dream. Who would ever do that? Years later, as it transpired, I actually worked with Larry Erickson while I was on assignment in Detroit. And it got me thinking again. Came back home. We had been doing a few concept cars by then, after the Monaro and others in the early 2000s. And it dawned on me that the 50th anniversary of the FJ was coming up. And I thought, well, you don't ask, you don't get. So I put some sketches together and then I put it to the team. Mike Simcoe was my boss at the time. I said, what if we did some sort of radical concept car that was based on an FJ? Just for fun, we had done all sorts of other things. And that's where it kind of started. People kind of lukewarm at first. They thought, yeah, it looks good, really great looking drawings, but how do we sell this concept? Well, it took a lot of lobbying, but eventually we got it off the ground, and it began as a labour of love. I had a whole bunch of guys around me who were just happy to work after hours, just doing it and see if we can get it over the line. And then finally, I took it to what was then the managing director, or who was then, it was Denny Mooney. I said, all sorts of tip cars, this would be something different. It'd be just a celebration of our passion for design, engineering, the Holden brand, the Australian auto industry. It'd be just something to do for the public. What do you think? So, how much will that cost? So, well, don't worry about the labour. We've got that covered with people who are just more than willing to put up their time. And it would take a few $100,000, things that we couldn't make ourselves. So he finally said, yeah, just do it. This will be fun. And that's how it came about. Fletch, it was really just a labour of love and just an expression of our passion.
Also, too, Richard, it reflects a different time, doesn't it? It must have been an incredible time at Holden where they were so receptive to these ideas and so open in terms of when it came to the checkbook.
Yes, you're quite right there. I mean, it's always been tight with the checkbook. People think that car companies have, zillions of dollars to throw around, but it's just not the case. It's a very cutthroat environment. There's very low margins on vehicles. You have to sell a lot of them to make money, and often you don't make any money. You're just relying on assets in the pool. But to get these things over the line, I think they are receptive if they see the same passion in the people.
Also, too, I think a lot of expenses too that we don't consider on a daily basis too, like down to research and development. You turn up and take the new car for a test drive, and it feels good and it drives nice, but a lot of us just don't appreciate the amount of millions that have gone into just that alone to perfect that car.
Oh, absolutely. And people would be astonished to see the bills behind developing vehicles, even the smallest things to tool up. Yep. Like a front grille for a radiator grille is hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Plus all the amount of work that goes in it. So, yes, it's a very expensive industry.
And after having just spoken to the head of styling of Holden back in the day, Richard Ferlazzo, that should give you some idea of how mighty General Motors Holdens were. Their ability to style, craft, design, manufacture and carry through. The second series Monaro was a great success, and as a part of that success was going to be this car here, the 2002 Marilyn Monaro Cabriolet. Everything attributing to a great convertible car that you'd ever want. All the styling under the sun, of course the luxurious appointments on the inside, and this car was supposed to be mass-produced, but sign of the times, unfortunately, never went ahead.
I've been a motoring enthusiast all my life. My Coupe 4 is rare and very special. A real performance car with all-wheel drive grip. I'm not a car club bloke and I don't work on it myself, but I do have a great mechanic. One day, I might even get that HQ. When it comes to insurance, it's got to be Shannons.
Shannons shares your passion. Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
In 2025, why not consider a tour of Detroit, Michigan, USA with Fletch? Detroit, it's the Motown City, the automotive epicenter. Each day is wow, wow, and more wow. Imagine experiencing where automotive history on a grand scale began. Stay in fine accommodation, taking in some of the best museums and private car collections on the planet. Book your exclusive 2025 Detroit tour with Fletch. Enquiries at DetroitClassicTours.com. And of course, if you own a Classic or two, make sure they are insured with Shannons. There have been some Holden museums featured in the past on Classic Restos, and you can search for these on the Shannons Club. While you're there, look around Australia's largest automotive online hub. For more information, visit shannons.com.au.
Now, one year I was invited to the 60th anniversary of the FC Holden, and what a day that was. I also had another chance to catch up with Richard Ferlazzo. I'm privileged to have the Design Director of General Motors, Richard Ferlazzo. How are you, Richard?
Very well, thanks, Fletch.
What a great day, what a great opportunity for you to come along.
Fantastic day. Look, the FC is one of my favourites. Of course, all Holdens are dear to my heart, being a design director at Holden. But the FC in particular, look, it's a really beautiful car. In its day, clearly inspired by the Chevys or the 567s. It's got all the embellishment, it's got the sleek lines. It's just a really pretty car.
How do you feel at an emotional level to think 60 years down the track and we're turning up today with the birthday cake and celebrating such a milestone for Holden?
Look, it's really emotional, to be quite honest. These people should be applauded and commended for keeping these cars on the road. You know, they are virtually historians. They're keeping part of the Australian automotive history rolling, and we can be very proud of it, by the way. You know, our history goes back 100 years, almost from the time the car was created. Australians were making them, and Holden were producing cars for other brands for quite a while until General Motors purchased Holden in the 30s, and ever since then it really took off. Set up a design studio, proper engineering, and that's how these cars came about. You know, we're really lucky to be able to have developed these cars just for our market.
Especially to market it at a time as Australia's own car, which was just so special. We had some American cars coming in later, some beforehand as imported cars, but solely made here had such an impact. And back in their day as well, we had a car that could take a family of four around at 60 miles an hour, return up to 28, 29 miles per gallon. They were a robust car, they were a simple car. It really changed the way of motoring in this country, didn't it?
Absolutely. See, we had influence from other areas at the time, you know, the British or the American, but the British cars were kind of too small and underpowered. The Americans maybe not quite right either. So what really came about was the ability for Australians to design and engineer vehicles just for our market. You know, and the conditions here are a little bit more, I won't say hostile, but a bit more demanding than, say, some of the roads in Europe or even the States. And that's where the local engineering comes into play. Well, designing cars takes a long time because there are so many stakeholders in the process. So not only are you allowing designers to design something that's really beautiful to look at, but it's going to be functional. So we're also involved in and responsible for, you know, the packaging of the vehicle, how people communicate with the vehicle, how they interact with it. Then you have engineering, and you have marketing and planning, and they all have their say in, well, you've got to be able to make it, we've got to make it affordably. And of course, these days, safety is the single biggest important factor, and that really influences the way cars look. So it really is the confluence or the balancing of all those conflicting objectives to come up with the final product. And look, it's not easy, but I tell you what, it's really challenging and really gratifying when you get one on the road later on.
We have to look upon the Move Museum at Shepparton, Victoria as world class. That is a sensational museum. I had the opportunity a while ago to feature the Move Museum at Shepparton. Here is just some of that.
Move is a world-class transport museum. Move displays motor cars, motorbikes, trucks, buses and much more. It is here that you can learn about the legends of the road transport industry and their machines in the Kenworth Dealer Pavilion's Avenue of Legends. Move also includes the Efijy Museum, the Farron Vintage Bicycle Collection, the Dick Clayton Collection of gramophones, telephones and radio, just to name some, all displayed in a contemporary and interactive exhibition space. Move is a complete destination offering coffee and dining at the Milestone Cafe. There's the Move shop for a gift, keepsake or motoring accessory. Now, this place began life as the Shepparton Motor Museum and has featured here on Classic Restos back in 2017. Several driving forces from around the local area since then have got together and voila, a massive revamp, creating an all-new visitor attraction for the region. A significant addition to the original museum was that of the Efijy Museum. Lots of historic pieces of machinery and manufactured items were brought together under one roof to celebrate one of the great and enduring family business stories of Australia, as Efijy started in Shepparton Shepparton back in the 1880s. Despite receiving funding, the project wouldn't be completed without the amazing generosity of individuals and businesses involved in it. Move opened officially in November 2021. What was once a small regional motor museum occupying less than 2,000 square metres of space is now a proud 10,000 square metre transport museum that is often referred to, as stated prior, world class. I only have time to mention some of the information that was given to me prior, but this episode is just a quick peekaboo compared to what you will see when you visit here.
My passion for cars began when Nana and Pop bought their new Toyota Crown. It was Nana's, really. She loved that car. We went everywhere in it. My passion now is just the same, even though my cars are a little different. I've still got Nana's car, couldn't part with it. And I reckon if she was here today, she'd be insured with Shannons too.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
Your story began in 1971. It's part of an endless tapestry that tells the story of our nation. It connects innovators to artisans, forests to houses, from the largest of operations to the smallest of outcomes. It's heritage. It's a legacy.
Planning a road trip, how awesome is it? You're going to do Shepparton? Well, maybe you might want to continue west to Deniliquin in New South Wales. I know you probably think as soon as you hear Deniliquin, you think of the Ute Muster out there. Well, there's a guy out there at Deniliquin by the name of Neville Purtle, a heck of a nice guy. And Neville, a few years back now, took the initiative to open a museum there, calling it the Depot.
The Depot Museum and collection came out of a desire to have Rosie behind me here put on display and enjoyed by more than just a shed full of people. What you see when you come through the door is hopefully stuff that evokes memories. That's what we're aiming to do. There's a lot of local memorabilia. There's a lot of stuff that we've put around that do information and just generally resetting the scene, I suppose, from days gone by, that 40 to 50 to 60s. And not just motor vehicles, it's a collection of memorabilia, and Elvis Presley and down to the lounge and dining area upstairs that many people have said, how do you get Mum's lounge room upstairs? Yeah, the motor vehicles are sort of ranged from your Holdens, from the FX, or the 1948, through to a couple of later vehicles in there, the last of the V8 Utes. There's American stuff, there's luxury vehicles, there's early years, there's a 1908 French vehicle here, a collection of fire engines, through to trucks and some of our buses and other people's buses from days gone by. I suppose that the personal side of the collection is that it reflects us history, it reflects days gone by. The aim was to honour those in the pioneers of transport, whether it be car or truck transport or buses, to put on display and explain the conditions they operated under. So that was to give an appreciation. One of the aims is to be able to get kids to come through and teach them about transport, teach them about history.
Neville, what a privilege to come to Deniliquin and meet yourself and see what you've done here. It's outstanding.
Thank you, Fletch. It's a privilege to have you here.
Thank you. I can't help but notice some of the stuff from Lost in the 50s from everybody's mate Glenn Jennings, and I think there's a little part of us that all a bit sad that's gone, and you've got some of his stuff here which helps to keep that dream alive.
Yeah, we end up over the period of his auction, and even prior to that, I brought a DeLorean off Glenn when he found a better one, and we'd seen what he had there, and so when the auction came up, we took the opportunity to acquire some of his collection. It certainly took the labour out of putting a collection together ourselves, and I think there was something like 3 semi-trailers and about 4 vans went up there and brought stuff back. So yeah, we were stoked to be able to get hold of it.
I find something exciting when I go somewhere and I get lost in it. And it's not just one building here. You open doors and off you go, you walk through, you go into another section, and then you'll go up a staircase and down the other side, and then there's another staircase on the other side. And what you've done here, you've really nutted this out well.
Yeah, look, again, as you said, it's a great team. We've had a great team effort. I suppose I was responsible for a vision. They were responsible to put it together and make it work. The eye to detail and put stuff and where it had to go was that team. Look, we wanted to utilise every space. Every time someone, no matter where they went, they seen something new, and even down to decorating the stairways, so that with information from days gone by.
It's unbelievable. I think it's nice too where it began with Rosie, the school bus, in mind. What an icon she is.
Yeah, Rosie's an icon. She's been in our family since '74. She's a '48 model. She's been the oldest registered school bus in Australia, continually registered, and it's the pride of our fleet.
It's a good testament to the old Bedford product too, isn't it?
Oh yeah, like they don't build them like that anymore. Some people say thank God, but no, look, it's a pleasure to have it, and it gives a lot of satisfaction.
A truck driver told me many years ago had a Bedford tipper, and he told me back in the 70s that Bedford's made a lot of guys a lot of money back in the day.
Oh yeah, look, my dad had, I think at one stage we had 9 Bedfords. Rosie's actually number 9, so she was number 9 of the Bedford fleet. So our whole fleet from when he started in 1951 through to 73, I think. No, 78 was the last Bedford we bought, and so it was the backbone of our business.
Good on you, Neville. Well done.
Thank you, Fletch.
The Riverina of New South Wales is a nice part of the state to drive around, and with museums, not everything has to be massive. It's about how comprehensive they are, and a trip to Temora could be on your map as well to check out the Ambulance Museum and the Tractor Museum there. I got to catch up with Bill, and before you even get a chance to get to where the ambulances are, you're going to be a couple of hours getting through the tractors first. Check this out.
It's great to have you here, Fletch. We really enjoy the fact that you're coming to discover one of our hidden gems.
Well, thank you. And this is the first time that Classic Restos has actually filmed in Temora, New South Wales. So it just goes to show it takes a long time to get around this big country of ours. And it just never ceases to amaze me where bits and pieces and machinery come from. Now, you've got this gel bar here behind us from 1915.
Yep.
And apparently it's pretty incredible. What's the story?
Well, it's one of our most iconic tractors, mainly because it is an Australian tractor, of course, made in Ballarat, and the engine in it was made in November 1914. There's a gentleman out there that studies them, and he believes that this is the oldest working example of a gel bar still going around, and our volunteers keep it in a condition, Fletch, that it's as good as it rolled off the assembly line all those years ago. And what I was going to tell you about it is that it's quite different to everything else. It's got an air scavenging engine. So we've got about 50 tractors, and we could start them all up. If we start this one, you will know that it's going.
So what can you tell us about this, Bill?
Well, this one's particularly interesting because it's actually an articulated tractor. I'm actually an escaped farmer, so I remember farming through the 80s, and articulated tractors became very, very significant through that period of time. But this one actually dates from 60 years earlier. And why they call it a Moline Universal? It's because it's made in America. It's from Illinois, and the thing is that you could break it in the middle in the articulation, and instead and put a whole lot of different implements behind the tractor. So the actual tractor part is only the first part of the tractor, and it had quite a few significant improvements in it and that sort of thing.
So when we look back at 1920s, the talk in the farming communities with the way that equipment was evolving, this would have been cutting edge stuff.
Yes, it was a very significant change from what mostly happening, because most of your tractors were becoming what we more understand as your standard sort of tractor, which is a fixed body Vic chassis implement. Well, this one here, it looked at the idea of being able to use the main tractor part in the front and put all these different implements in the back.
You've been here a long time. Give us a quick rundown on your involvement here at the Bundawarra Centre and this incredible museum here in Temora.
Well, Fletch, I'm really fortunate because I'm a tragic. And basically, ever since school, I've loved the idea of heritage and local history and things like that. And this museum actually began, I think they started collecting in about 1966 and acquiring things from the community. And they started the museum, started work on the museum in 1970, and they opened it in March 73. And then some of it was already established before I actually got the opportunity to be involved in, I suppose, May of 1981. So we've been here a long time. One of the lovely things about the museum is all the different aspects of it tend to be run by people who really engage with that aspect. And my particular interest at the time, and it continues, is the record keeping, and we have a marvellous archive of local records that I've had the opportunity to promote with the support of the other volunteers. I think there's about 56 tractors in our collection at the moment, and the vast majority work. We have dedicated volunteers that work with our collection, and on our annual exhibition, we'll often have anything up to 3 grand parades of different phases of tractors. It is a major collection within our wider offering. One of the really significant things about our collection is that it grew as the community's grown. Obviously, the agriculture was a low-hanging fruit, and so that we've started with that. But also, what we're finding in the 21st century, our community's changing, and a lot of our volunteers are associated with the emergency services. So I suppose over the last 15, 20 years, we've tended to embrace them to a much larger extent. We've got rural fire service behind us, and we've also got a fire and rescue. And of course, the ambulance service is the jewel in our crown. It's not offered anywhere else in New South Wales, and the support we've received, principally from the New South Wales Ambulance Service, but from the entire fraternity, the ambulance fraternity, it's been magic. It's just tremendous, very satisfying, and I believe that's our future.
I hope you've really enjoyed today's episode. An inspiration to travel, to get out when you can and do a road trip, and just keep a few of these museums in mind. They're great places to visit. They're teamed with people that will welcome you as soon as you walk through the door. I know you've probably already seen a lot of these museums. Maybe it's been a while since you have. But if there's any of those museums that you've seen on today's show that you haven't been, you might want to do yourself a favour and get along there when you can. Until next week, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, please always ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch. Thank you for watching. Oh, I forgot the milk.
Classic Restos, proudly brought to you by Shannons. Sign up to become a member of the Shannons Club. Kenworth Trucks Australia and Pace Farm Eggs.